Welcome back. Joining me in the studio today is none other than the king of the jungle, Mr. Mufasa Musa, a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Mufasa.
Good morning.
I'm putting you on the spot. I like to put you on the spot.
Well, it depends on the type of jungle you're in.
What kind of jungle do you prefer?
I prefer the jungle where you have human beings and where you have all the good things of life.
Okay.
And
a thriving jungle.
It's all good. It's all good.
You said it's all good.
Thank you. Good morning, Antonia.
All right. Good morning to you as well. Also joining us for today's discussion is Mr. Hartley Jaja. He's also a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Mr. Jaja.
Thank you very much, Tonya. It's good to see you again.
Also good to see you again. All right, let's move into today's stories. A Bilibiri in Oduya government area of Bayelsa State on Wednesday afternoon when a fuel tanker collided with a tricycle, popularly known as Keke Napep, killing the driver and 4 children. The crash, which occurred along the Ibilibiri stretch of the Yenegwe Okaki Otuasega Road, plunged the predominantly farming and fishing community into mourning. Eyewitnesses said the victims were returning from school when a tanker suspected to have suffered brake failure skidded off the road and crashed the tricycle. The children were pupils of school in Otuaseka community, and the tricycle driver was a family member who regularly transported them. According to an eyewitness, the tricycle was parked near the children's residence when the accident occurred. One people had already crossed the road to enter their home when the tanker bearing an NNPC logo struck the keke, crashing those inside before they could get out. The tanker driver reportedly fled the scene, but the conductor was apprehended by military personnel and handed over to the police. The Federal Road Safety Commission officer, speaking on condition of anonymity, commended the youth of the community for maintaining peace and helping secure the tanker, preventing further escalation. First of all, my heart goes out to the families of the victims. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I'm going to start with you, Mufasa, on this sad story. 4 lives lost, 3 students, 1 driver, driver, life lost to an unfortunate situation that could have been prevented, because it was obviously that they were parked in front of their house, right, in front of their premises. It's not like they were parked in the middle of the road. So how can a tanker, if they were following the right regulation, following the traffic laws and regulation, how was it possible for them to have been able to veer onto where the keke was parked and then, kill these people inside the vehicle?
Wow. It's indeed a very sad one. I could imagine the psychological trauma that the families of the deceased going through. Children being made to their lives cut short for reasons that is best, but like you rightly said, and I also join my voice to yours by to the family. It's not easy, especially now, but I also know that a vehicle that has brake, at that point is out of control, and there's no way you would have been able to obey any kind of traffic rule or something. I think that action was, though unfortunate, at the same time it was spontaneous. This could have been averted if there are stricter rules that restrict heavy-duty vehicles, tankers, to ply the roads only at night. At least I'm familiar with most places in Bayelsa. I do not think the size of the roads in Bayelsa, would capacity to be carrying heavy-duty duty vehicles, trucks during the daytime, at the same time having smaller vehicles and keke napep and all of that still plying the road. So for me, I think that's the only way that some of these nuances could have been averted. You know, tankers, heavy duty vehicles shouldn't be plying the road during the daytime. You know, I don't want to even begin to look into the reckless, way that these tanker drivers, handle their vehicles. They don't even have to regard for other road users. For them, they are using a high vehicle, and all of that. If you don't stay away from the roads, yes, it's not the first time. This is one death. The restlessness of drivers. Your brake, of course, vehicles don't, most times, they don't any kind of notification, especially when the brake wants to fail. It's a machine, but if you're a careful driver, you're a very careful driver, if you check some of these things before you ply the road, you might be lucky to notice when these things want to happen. But it's quite unfortunate, and like I've said, these things can be prevented. It's only when we have stricter laws or strict laws that restrict heavy duty to 9 driving alone. That daytime is not. A lot of innocent Nigerians have lost their lives to these tanker drivers.
Jaja, I want to ask you, with a big corporation involved, the NNPC, because from the story, it was noted that it's branded, it's an NDDC vehicle because it's branded NNPC. Looking at how the magnitude of NNPC, would you say that shouldn't it be uncommon for them to put an unwealthy vehicle under it? Are they not supposed to make sure that before a vehicle, a heavy-duty vehicle like a tanker is plying the roads of Nigeria, that all the necessary maintenance are done beforehand? The brakes are being checked, making sure that the vehicle is roadworthy. Are we not supposed to have, or are they not supposed to have such policies in place before these drivers can take the vehicles on the road?
Well, this is a very, very sad event, and no one deserves to die like that. Hearing that children were also involved, a parent waking up his child, beating them, putting them in a transport system. This has been, since we were young. When we were young, due to some constraints, our parents, we have a particular driver or so that takes us in the morning, during the days when school bus were a thing. So it happens all the time where parents put their children in transport systems to take them to school. So a parent's waking up, dressing up his or her child, going to school and hearing the news of, tanker driver failing and them. It's something that it's not something that is edible to the ears. It's very sad, and my heart goes out to the families involved. This company, NNPC, mentioned and all should look into these things, because if you've been watching, things going on over time, this is not the first time we're hearing stories like this. I mean, it's been something that's been repeating. It's repeating. They 1 week, 2 weeks, and I feel the company involved should be able to rule out measures. If you see where these tanker drivers move on the road, most times they are under drugs, some are under some form of, induced, alcohol and all of that. and they move as if every other person are ants. And we've been seeing this situation occur and been done about it. I feel that the only way to, put a stop to this or to reduce it to the barest minimum, a stricter rules should be put in, bringing these drivers in. Where are they coming from? What knowledge of driving do they have? Is it that they just bring people and they just put them in and, drive trucks? These things should be checked. Big companies like this should even be ashamed that their names are, tagged to a situation like this. It's not proper. It shows that there is no proper driver evaluation before giving them these trucks. And Nigerian laws should be able to tilt towards that direction. There are a lot of that these truck drivers have their own road entirely for truck drivers.
Yeah.
They don't operate in the same road that domestic operations happen because of things like this. When a mistake happens in a small car, it's easier to avert. But these big heavy duty vehicles are most times those little things, those like brake failure, it's normal. But say brake failure, look at how it ended the life of people who came out to go about their daily things. If it's a small car, not like we don't have incidents like that, but it's a lot different than what we have. So I feel that this should look holistically into this, because road safety management is becoming worse, as we may have in Nigeria, and those agencies involved, they realize they focus more on taking bribes and all of that. And that is why you can see some vehicles, some heavy duty vehicles, if you look at them, you on a normal eyesight of a human being, if you see this car, you're supposed to know that these cars are not supposed to be operating in our roads. Even if for say they make a road for this tanker, there are some vehicles that are not supposed to be in operation anymore. And over time we have looked at these things. Over time we have, but I mean, the loss of human lives is becoming on a high by factors like this. So I want to urge NNPC, I want to urge the government and the agencies involved in heavy duty vehicles and so what, to look into driver evaluation, provide stricter rules, and if possible, create their timing. If maybe making roads at this point for heavy duty would be too much of a thing to do, they should create stricter rules to help them manage the timing in which they operate. If they operate more at night, it will be difficult hearing situations like this. Not that same road that a small car is passing, you see two heavy duty. I mean, things like this are bound to happen if rules are not looked into, if stricter rules are not enacted in the society. So I think that is what should be done.
All right. I think my final question will be to you, Mr. Mufasa. Situation where we see it's like the hit and run is a culture in Nigeria. A driver will be involved in an accident, especially when life is at stake. Instead of them finding an immediate response, in trying to safeguard the lives of or the properties that is being destroyed, the first thing that comes to mind is to flee the crime. I mean, it's become like a continual something here in Nigeria. Sometimes you realize that some of these accident victims' life would have been saved if they had been given immediate medical attention. Because even the passerbys would be afraid to even carry them or convey them to the hospitals due to the many questions that they would have to answer to the police and whatnot. But the drivers involved in the accidents, they will flee the scene of the crime. The hit and run culture in Nigeria, what do you have to say concerning that?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. Like you said, what should have, been the right thing to do is for try to see how you can, help. Either if the person is wounded, not, but to be and honest with current reality. Not that I'm endorsing town, but what most people usually do initially is to begin to, descend on the driver, and we tend to abandon what should have been that emergency attention that the accident victim, would even need at that point in time. And if you want to place it side by side with the current culture of wanting to include what has happened on the internet and all of that, and you see that it's almost portraying humans. I don't want to narrow it to Nigeria alone. We see some of these things even happen in civilized climate. The only advantage they have over there is their response to emergency is swift. Even the people around don't, by themselves carry the person to a nearby medical facility by just dialing the emergency number. Within no distant time, you see ambulances and paramedics and all of that rushing to try to save the victim. But in our own climate, these are some things that are far-fetched. Hit and run. I think it's just because of that apprehension, the fear of being mocked by people around. But it's still not to say that even you as the person who has run over an individual, that you cannot just summon that courage, because what happens as a result of your own doing, either knowingly or unknowingly, what has happened at that point. You should be willing and ready to bear the consequences, but not that the consequences should not also go to your own debts. Okay, so these are some of the things. I think what we should be advocating for is for security teams to be at strategic locations at all times, so that when things like this happen, even if the suspect decide to flee the scene for fear of being mobbed, we have security agencies who will just come and see what they can do to remedy the situation. But quite unfortunately, we don't get to see that happen in our country. But going forward, I hope that we begin to learn to do things the right way and put things in proper perspective, so that all measures will be applied to ensure that we are safe when things like this happen.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Chaos erupted in Calabar yesterday as commercial drivers blocked major roads to protest alleged multiple harassment and extortion by both authorized and illegal enforcement agencies in the state capital. The protests affected key routes, including areas around the University of Calabar, causing severe gridlock as drivers barricaded roads to press their demands and seek urgent government intervention. Speaking to journalists, Mr. Etim Asugo, a minibus driver, said that in addition to the daily 700 naira ticket payments, operators face harassment and fines under various subheads. Responding to the protest, Special Advisor to the Governor on General Duties, Akiba Ekpenyong, said some of the enforcement groups cited by drivers are not officially recognized by the state government. He announced a temporary suspension of all forms of taxation and enforcement linked to the complaints pending discussions with relevant agencies. Akiva added that 5 drivers from each protest point would meet with authorities for dialogue. According to him, His Excellency is committed to ensuring that Cross River people are not exploited. Mr. Jaja, let me actually. Let's look at the broad implication of multiple taxation on these drivers. At the end of the day, who is going to bear the crux of these multiple payments? As the people, because they are the ones making use of these drivers. other than maybe daily transportation to and fro from their places of wherever they want to go to. We're also looking at those who are transporting foodstuffs, those who are transporting goods. You know, like I said, the general economic implication of double taxation in this instance to the people of Nigeria.
Well, what it should be called is illegal multiple taxation, because you know, the last time we were here, Mr. Mufasa mentioned something about tax force. The idea of tax force is very good, but the thing is that most of them leave the task and focus on the force. You know, that's something that is a reality in our today's society. Because how can it, multiple taxation would shrink any economy of a state, of a community, or of a region. And these people are doing it through their full chest, without any form of, redress or anything of sort. Come on. This is the 21st century, and we're hearing things of multiple taxation. These people come, how much do they make? Tax force here, tax force there, tax force this, and a lot of them operate illegally. I can tell you for free, a lot of them operate illegally. I think what the government should do is look into these things. You know, tomorrow people come out to blame the government, blame the government, blame the government, but they don't know that people that have been tasked to do these things, to look into things like this, are also part of the problem. When these people go around taxing little business, speak to the average market woman, you hear them that there are people who come and take a 1K in the morning, another set of people before afternoon come and take another 1K, another set of people in the evening. I mean, it's too much. It's too much on the average Nigerian. The idea of tax payment is good. It's something that happens, all around the world. I mean, you can use tax to, develop a lot of things. But doing this illegally is totally unfair and uncalled for. And relevant agencies into these things so that the poor and common man is not exploited for things that are not necessary. Hearing this thing in this time is very sad. Person comes out to work, a man comes out to run taxis. How much does he make? And you're taxing left, right, and center. How do they grow? How do they feed? So the protest is called for. In the Nigerian society today, it looks like if you don't come out to protest, the relevant people involved would not know. I mean, instead of pointing hands to one person, we should attack those agencies involved in things like this, because the security people there, they see these persons, but they don't say anything. Maybe, allegedly, maybe they are giving them some to. We should not be done. We should not be, should not be a case of anything happening today in our society. Okay. Those things should be totally overhauled, and the required agencies for tax should outline fully and educate the people on the tax they should pay, and should also educate the people on the tax that should not be paid. Because in that way, knowing that this is the right tax to pay, if any other person comes first, you can clearly act and nothing will be done. Okay. So I think that's what we should do.
All right, speaking of which, Mufasa, the special advisor to the governor, Akiba, mentioned that some of these enforcement groups cited by the drivers are not even recognized, which means that they are aware of such groups existing, and then how they are extorting and then harassing the drivers for extra taxation. Now the question is, if you are aware of this situation, why haven't they done something either to regulate or monitor the double taxation on these drivers? Because like we rightfully pointed out, at the end of the day, it's the people of Calabar who are going to bear the crux of whatever that is happening, because just for them to be able to make ends meet, they would have to increase fares. And we've been complaining before. We to say, oh, it's because of forced scarcity, it's because of lack of regulation in the oil sector and what's not. Luckily for us, some of these issues has been sorted out, Now, these drivers are now facing multiple taxation from illegal agencies, and the government is aware. What are the monitoring and then enforcement policies put in place to ensure that these things does not continue?
Which of the issues have been sorted out, if I may ask?
Do you
Well, none of the issues have been sorted out.
When it comes to fuel scarcity, we've not seen fuel scarcity in a while.
We are chasing shadows. You know, in this country we live and it's a very big issue. I'm happy that even they themselves, they know these sets of people who constitute themselves as, you know, as a government. Because if you go on the street and begin to collect taxes when you don't have the authority to do so, you have automatically constitute yourself as a government, you know, or a parallel government of some sort. You know, in the north, we hear that bandits and terrorists collect taxes from people. And, you know, it's quite unfortunate. It's a society that we've come to find ourselves. I'm also aware that some of these people you see on the road, you know, they call them miscreants, they call them touts. You know, these are people who that, you know, they've worked for the politicians, and that's the only way they can use to compensate themselves. That's why you don't see them being arrested. You know, government officials, they drive past them every day and they don't do anything to them. Unfortunately, it is you and I that gets to bear the brunt. You know, we complain every now and then that things are getting expensive, and then you won't blame the driver on the road, you won't blame the market woman, because like Jaja rightly said, you know, you operate a small business, and before your day, you know, will come and go, you've paid different kinds of taxes. You know, some get receipt for the payment. They just tell you that, Madam, bring waiting, you know, you get, and if you don't pay, the kind of treatment you will get, you will regret your life. And funny enough, and unfortunately enough, police officers most times go with these people. You know, you call them illegal tax operators, and you see them moving with police officers. How do you reconcile that? If you notice, a lot of businesses have, you know, shut down because of things like this. You know, after paying for shop rents, after paying, you know, operating costs and all of that, you see multiple taxations, and you know, it's quite unfortunate. And like I've always said, we'll continue to see this since we decide to dwell in a, you know, every other civilized society, they moved away from this, you know, money exchanging hands in the shop, on the road. Every unified tax payment system where you don't need to give anybody money on the road. You know, after paying all of these things online, or maybe you go to the website and you see. So it's something that the government is aware. They know this. You know, it's not overnight. It's the whole nefarious activity. So if you want to get them arrested, you know where they are, you know, stationed, you know where they are. Just go there and get them arrested instead of coming to begin to. So we know that there are people who don't have the authority to do so, and you've not done anything about it. That is why you see the audacity, you see the temerity that this guy is a monster. You know that nothing will happen. You know, so for me, it's a matter of self-denial. Quite unfortunately, the people will keep complaining, you know, believing that the government could do something about it. But let me just bring this to them. The government will do nothing about it, because these are the government boys. They know them, and the boys themselves, they know that nothing, you know, they will not be arrested. They don't operate at night. Some of them move with police. You know, at the end of the day, it trickles down to you and I. What ordinarily should be sold for 50 naira, you have to pay extra 150, because the trader would also want to cover the cost. The driver would also want to cover the cost. You move from year to year, you see somebody on the road, if you don't give them money, they will destroy your vehicle and they will not run. That is the level that we've gotten to in this country. it's like a jungle of some sort. You know, where the survival of the fittest. You know, so it's unfortunate.
It's quite
My
unfortunate.
message to the government of Cross River State is not peculiar to Cross River State alone. You know, the government all around should ensure that one, these boys that are doing this, you get them arrested. They should create. This is not empowerment. You don't give somebody uniform or something to go to the road and begin to harass commuters. Give them proper job. If you do that, the society will become a better place for everybody, even for business to strive.
All right, let's move on. Bauchi State Police Command has announced the deployment of massive security personnel and enhanced weaponry to troubled communities in a renewed effort to curb banditry and prevent any breakdown of law and order. Speaking during a press briefing on Thursday, the police public relations officer, Nafiu Habib, said the move followed a recent resurgence of security concerns in Gwana, Digari, and Kafin Duguru, all located in Al-Kaleri local government area. Habib explained that the deployment was carried out through joint operations involving the police, the military, and the Department of State Services, the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security agencies. According to him, the collaborative efforts of security agencies supported by the Bauchi state government are already yielding positive results. Recently, we saw the president asking the National Assembly to look into, the mobilization of state police, to try and then bring that to the forefront. In a situation or in a place like Bauchi State where, banditry, kidnappings, insecurity is plunging these sites, do you think that the formation of state police and additional, these would help curb down these atrocities? Mr. Jaja?
Well, the issue of banditry, it's becoming a very serious concern, in Nigeria. And it's not peculiar to this particular administration. But I feel that security, the issue of security should be done holistically amongst all security agencies. We should not leave the work to just maybe the military or the police or the DSS. And that's why I keep clamoring on community policing. I keep clamoring on empowering community vigilantes, because it's more or less looking like these things are politically motivated. I don't want to point fingers, but I mean, hearing these things every day, it shows major concern. I would say the government should put in more effort on security reforms. I know that the Tinubu's administration is working in top gear towards security reforms, but not everything can happen in one day. That is why we need all these security agencies to come together, work together. The government should also put in funding on community policing, put in funding, serious community vigilantes. Last time I was here, I kept mentioning that most of these terrains are very new to some security agents. We should promote local vigilante groups. We should promote it. The government not just shy away from that, because these local groups, they know most of these persons, but because of fear or lack of them, they cannot go after them. So recruit more troops into all these agencies, and these agencies should come together to work as one to be able to curb all these things we hear in society. The moving of security agencies to this local government is a good one, but it should not always be after maybe one thing has happened. Then the security agencies, the commission police, or those appropriate security agencies would move husbands or police, military, and all of that. We are aware of these hot hot areas. So these persons should be stationed ahead of time. Since these are hot areas, these people should be stationed there, because you cannot overly emphasize the deployment of large police groups, large military groups in areas like this. The presence of these security groups chase away most of these banditries we're hearing these days. So I feel government should do more on pressing on that, because the common man, that is why when you mentioned on the news about flights and all that, these are the factors that make these people exploit the common man in Nigeria, because everybody is finding it difficult to, road trips that we do those days. But now, it's if you don't have, it's popularly said, if you don't have money for flight, better stay your house, because it's better to pay flight ticket than to pay ransom. I mean, we should be able to, as a society, move past news like this. I know security threats cannot be totally annihilated, but I feel the government still has more to do to reduce this, type of news to the bare minimum. Thank you.
All right. To you, Mufasa, like Judge rightfully pointed out, we know the red zones or the hot zones in Nigeria. We know the atrocities that are being carried out daily in these parts of Nigeria. When our security forces are embarking on such crucial movements, is it right for them to even make it public? Because they said we have enhanced weaponry. Are we supposed to know you have enhanced weaponry? Are we not giving these people more information on how to protect themselves against, our security forces? And they are also saying their policies or their interventions are yielding results. But meanwhile, each and every other day, we're hearing more atrocities being committed. We're hearing more lives being lost. What do you have to say concerning this sad situation?
Yeah, just yesterday, I think about 24% in Kebbi State, Adamawa State had their own fair share of killing and all of that. So I don't know if there's any community in Nigeria that is not vulnerable, to speak.
Yeah.
Considering the prevailing circumstances as it affects, the security of, the average Nigerian. So for me, it's not enough to deploy more guns and more boots in a certain community in Bauchi State. My concern is what adequate measures have been put in place, to sustain and equally to prevent these things from happening. Like Jaja rightly said, I think the best form or way to fight insecurity is to prevent it. We cannot allow things to happen after which we come and begin to condemn and say, I think this is so and so, this is so and so place. Already the pressure on the police, on the army, civil defense is overwhelming, in fact, not even today that we were complaining of inadequate manpower, which means we need more boots on the ground. But if we place it side by side, the welfare and logistics needed to combat insecurity, we've not gotten there. We are still deploying our usual analog system. The fight against insecurity should have moved away from this analog system. We need to go more digital. We need to start deploying drones. We need to start, using, reconnaissance, technology. Even before the act is, you are aware to forestall it. But even in our case, this bandit bold to the extent that they notify the people that they're coming. So that is even, a slap, on our face as a nation. That they won't help you. They help you to get prepared, by telling you, they send notice, they send letters to these communities that are coming, and when they make do their threats, and they spend time to carry out their nefarious activities. Now, what we should be asking the government, and of course the security agencies, is what is really their challenge, what is making them not having that equal strength or superior powers, to subdue these people, even when they tell you that they are coming. So it leaves so much to be desired in the minds of some of us, that the government saddled with the responsibility to protect lives and property has failed in their regards, and that's the primary responsibility of the government. So for me, we should move away from the rhetorics. This is more or less the usual song, deploy to so and so and so and so, but has it yielded any positive result? The answer for me is an emphatic no. We want to see crimes reduced, prevented, so that tomorrow we'll not wake up to another sad news of some persons being killed, worshippers being killed, and just the same vicious circle.
Okay.
Something has to be done. If there's something that they're not telling us as Nigerians, the government should put on their thinking cap and begin to do the right thing. If it's what you need to maybe ask the whole of Nigerians to leave, so that maybe we'll leave the country for them, maybe I so do it up. Of course, it's impossible. But what we are asking, what we are demanding for, is for every Nigerian life to be protected. It's our entitlement. It's not as if they are doing us any favor. Every Nigerian deserves to live. Every Nigerian deserves to be protected. It's not only the high and mighty who can afford police escort and all of that. What happens to the farmers? What happens to the trader? What happens to the boy and girl in the public schools that cannot afford some of this? So, like I've said, it's not enough to do this deployment. Every community in Nigeria, as we speak, is vulnerable. We should deploy more of digital technology to monitor the movement of these people, so that we can forestall whatever attacks that they are planning in wherever they are, they are hibernating.
All right.
That's my position.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for that. Moving on, leaders of the opposition, the Congress and the new Nigerian People's Party on Thursday mounted fresh pressure on the National Assembly, demanding an immediate amendment of the Electoral Act 2026, which they described as anti-democratic and skewed ahead of the 2027 general elections. The Senate, however, swiftly dismissed the agitation, advising opposition leaders Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi and Rotimi Amechi to pursue their concerns within the framework of the National Assembly. Speaking at the press conference in Abuja, National Chairman of the new Nigerian People's Party, Ajuji Ahmed, said the contentious provision must be expunged without delay. Under the Electoral Act 2022, political parties were permitted to nominate candidates through direct primaries, involving all registered members in direct primaries conducted by delegates or by consensus arrangements reached by party leaders. However, the 2026 Electoral Act, recently passed by the National Assembly and assented to by President Bola Tinubu on Friday, on February 18th, restricts parties to only direct primaries and consensus options. In addition, the new law periods and timelines for primaries, while funding for the Independent National Electoral Commission will now be released 6 months before an election, instead of the previous 12 months. Oh, all right. Okay, Jaja, the Amendment Act. Usually when an act is being amended or when a law is being amended, we are looking towards a better law, one that is conducive for the people, one that bears in mind the needs of the people. Would you say the new Electoral Act as amended reflects these needs of the people or the will of the people? Has it made our electoral procedures better, or has it taken us back?
Well, electoral reform or electoral amendment is a continuous process. It's not something that should always, have the political finger pointed on, because in every, democratic society, the reason amendments are being carried is probably one or two noticed or might have been observed during the previous election, because I don't think that a process that gives 100%, well, 100%. So a lot of little things are always noticed. It is ideal that the government should always, at all, perform amendments and perform reforms. So, the opposition came out to, speak against the electoral amendment and electoral reform. It's normal, because in every democratic society, there's always room for opposition. There's always room for critics. So we cannot entirely say that they should not, come out. It is good that, there are criticisms. It is good that, there are opposition. But we should not always be we should not always round everything up in politics. What are they saying? Oh, they want full. These people are saying, the opposition are saying they want full everything to be electronically done and everything. Was it totally discarded? No. What this amendment, or what the National Assembly, the people who signed it, says, Nigeria is not totally ready for a full electronic transmission system during these elections. We are not entirely ready. Should we say we are ready, and at that day now during the elections we start experiencing network issues, we start experiencing power and all? Yes, the Nigerian state, this administration can do better on that, but we should focus on our current reality. You understand? The idea of full electronic transmission is good, but are we ready for that? Not yet. Was it totally kicked out? No. Should be done. And in places where these things cannot be done, we should continue the manual process. I think what the opposition should be mostly concerned of is how fair and free and credible this process can run, and those in charge of making this process. And good a thing that INEC is an independent body, devoid of any political, alignment. So, come on, if INEC can conduct these elections, we should be more concerned, opposition should be more concerned on how these elections can be conducted, instead of always in everything, every situation, whatever that is being discussed, people have to point a political finger. Not everything should be politically motivated. The idea of every time opposition, in fact, my Tory brother, opposition carry lamb. The idea of opposition is getting too much. Tinubu does this, is bad. Tinubu does that, is bad. We should be more constructive in opposition, instead of coming out to point down on everything our today gives. My lecturer, Dr. Chief James, would always tell me that, look, Jaja, no matter if somebody does not like you, there's nothing you will do in this life. If you like, sacrifice yourself. If you like, become Jesus Christ. Do all the wonders of the world. If somebody does not like you, they would never see anything good in what you do.
Okay.
Let's give this administration a break.
Okay.
There's nothing that, Rome cannot be built in a day. The president and, his cabinet are wise enough to accommodate every consent of Nigerians. And if the National Assembly deemed it fit that, okay, these are the amendments that should be put in place, I mean, why not allow them to do their work? Okay. And INEC to conduct elections. I believe that by 2027 would experience by then, whatever loopholes or whatever thing is being noticed, which obviously is common, would be enacted upon, probably by the next election. But for now, I feel every amendment is in line with what we consider credible and process. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Would you agree with him? Given the fact that I think statement is that it's a continuous amending and act is a a continuous process. But the urgency in this one is the fact that the elections is just next year, a couple of months away, right? Now, like you rightfully pointed out, it's a continuous process. Now, if after this election we notice a loophole, we can amend it in the next one. But what opposition is more looking at right now is the fact that means that they will have to wait additional 4 years before, if they will have to come into power, they will have to come into power because these laws are not benefiting them. Instead of the usual 1 year for campaigning, it's been reduced to 6 months, and then INEC is not to receive its money unless until 6 months into the elections. I mean, considering all of these things, is it fair that amended bill or the amended act is going to help us have a free, transparent, and credible election come 2027?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that the system we operate in this country, doesn't give room for the voices and concerns of the people to have preeminence. Okay, Parliament ordinarily should reflect, the positions and the yearnings of the people. I think that's why Parliament, was set up in the first instance. As a Parliament, you don't take decisions without feeling the pulse, getting the input of the people. But what we have currently in Nigeria is a complete far cry. There's nothing wrong in calling for opposition, calling for the Parliament to, revisit the recently amended electoral, acts, because it has been signed by the president. It is not rocket science. But my quarrel with this opposition is the fact that, opportunities have presented itself even when the debate was on, at the floor of the National Assembly. Of course, we saw how the majority had their say. The minority had their way, because even when the question was put, we saw the nays and the ayes and all of that, and everything falls back to the man that wields the gavel. But Nigerians are still, agitating. Nigerians are still calling for a serious in our leadership recruitment exercise. I don't think it has to do with any political party, because I will always say, there are a lot of Nigerians that don't belong to any political party. But what they are simply saying is that the process of electing our leaders has to, be more, transparent. It has to be more fair. It has to be more credible. Okay, when you say, 6 months before you fund INEC, and then some of the issues raised by the opposition, and I think instead of just waving it off, it would have been, only fair and just the Parliament, consider some of these things in the interest of vast majority of Nigerians. Unless, of course, there are certain things that they tend to achieve, in a process that is shrouded in a kind of maybe black or white smoke. The more you look, the less you see. Otherwise, elections, especially the 21st century, should have been an exercise that everybody sees what is going on, everybody participates, and everybody has a say. It's a situation where it becomes an all-comers affair, where only those who have power, those who have money, that gets what, how, and an election. If it does not carry everybody along, both opposition, both ruling party, everybody should be given a level field. INEC should be completely independent. INEC should be seen to be independent. INEC should not be manipulated. These are some of the things we are talking about. There has to be some level of digital. I always like to use the word digital because this is 21st century. Other people have tested it and it's working for them. So how come in our own case we begin to find the fault, the loopholes, like a way to escape, doing the right thing? Oh, we don't have networks in 9 states. Oh, what if we get it right? What if we start making adequate preparations from today, ensuring that those areas that you feel will not have network between now and things that they've slated elections, things, Starlinks, a lot of things can be done. What if these issues raised by because you cannot say you are practicing a democracy without a viable opposition. That is the beauty of democracy.
Okay.
Opposition must spot some of the loopholes and call it out for you to, see how you can, set the record straight, for you to see how you can make things right.
Okay.
So for me, it's something that we need to sit down as a nation and take deep introspection and consider how to move our nation forward. And the only way that we can preserve and sustain this our democracy is to ensure that we get it right from the level of our leadership recruitment. If we don't do that, maybe we'll say we are practicing and not a democracy. That's the way I see it.
All right. I know, Jaja, you have something to say to that, but we have just a little amount of time. But let's look into the next story quickly before we wrap up. African Democratic Congress has announced that it will petition the ECOWAS Courts of Justice over what it described as an assassination attempt on Peter Obi and John Oyegun in Edo State. In a statement on Wednesday, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, National Publicity Secretary of the party, alleged that a gun attack targeted Obi, Oyegun, and Olumide Akpata. The party described the incident as a dangerous and escalating pattern of political intimidation and terror against their party across the country. ADC said the alleged attack represents an act of terrorism against the opposition, which has no place in a constitutional democracy. The party also accused Governor Monday Otebelo of making inflammatory remarks that heighten political tension in the state. ADC violence allegedly attributed to the governor that he would not guarantee Obi's safety if he visited Edo State. Is it far-fetched to think that maybe the governor had followed through? I mean, just a couple of days ago, we saw the FCT minister, in Edo State to help them commission some projects and whatnot. I mean, his safety was guaranteed. So if they could guarantee their safety, why couldn't they guarantee the safety of Peter Obi and the ADC members?
Well, like I've always said, the problem with our opposition, or the opposition of the current administration, is that they are always quick to point fingers, to make everything politically related. Look, as an assassination attempt on any individual is totally condemned. Is intolerable. It should be something that should be looked into. I mean, someone of such high profile being assassinated, then imagine the common man. So instead of pointing political fingers, come on, the security agencies in charge of these things should look into it. Kind of things should not go unpunished. People involved in should be fished out and should be able to face a recourse for their actions. Should not allow a lot of persons do things this period and knowing fully well that they would always point it to the political side of view. I mean, Mr. Peter Obi can be having his own enemies, can be having a lot of persons that might be, he's a man of high profile. It's very impossible to get to a level without having, a lot of persons that might not agree with your view or with how you emerge or with you as a person. And it it must not always be politically related. Vultures, buccaneers use this period to perpetrate evil because they know fully well that their hands will always point on the administration. Opposition is good, but they should tone down on these pointing fingers or making everything to be politically, aggravated.
Okay.
And security agencies should look into that and fish whoever is involved, and they should be able to face the full recourse of the actions. It is a very sorry situation what Obi faced, and it should not reoccur, especially in a political season like this. Thank you.
All right, Mufasa, do you agree with Jaja in his statements that it could have come from anywhere, not necessarily because of the statements made by the governor of Edo State? Also, one would have asked that since the governor had said that he cannot guarantee his safety, therefore he should not come to Edo State, Peter Obi would have taken precautions, guarded, saved when he goes into Edo State, because nobody can tell him not to go to Edo State, especially during campaign periods. But would you agree with Jaja in saying that this has no political undertone and that the attack could come from anywhere?
The only part I agree with Jaja is the part that the assailants, those who perpetrated that nefarious act should be fished out and adequate punishment meted out on them. But the other aspect, I may not agree with him because they say when the wish cried in the night and the baby dies in the morning, it becomes very easy to point to the cause of death. I think the unfortunate statements made by the governor in time past that the new sheriff is in town and threatening fire and brimstone, you should get permission from you, we will not. But statements like that are completely unnecessary because if you have made statements like that in the past, and you may not be the one that will send people to go and do so. As I always advocated that leaders should be mindful of the things they say. There are people who just want to carry out and make do your threats just to impress you as your master and leader, and you'll be the one that will bear the consequences. The governor is in charge of security in the state. Is the one that guarantees protection of lives and property and things like this happen. So you cannot rule out political undertone. How come Obi has not been attacked anywhere else before in the country? Does it mean that Obi does not have enemies in Lagos? Does it mean Obi does not have enemies in Abuja? So how come he's in Edo State? So you cannot rule out political undertone. So that's why politicians need to be very mindful of the things they say. So these are things that could be avoided if you don't make inflammatory and careless statements, especially as a governor. So for me, my sympathies would be, I hope that those who were arrested are arrested and do an idea and get to the bottom. That's my position.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for keeping this discourse very civil, first of all. And also, I know we had a lot to say, but unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to go into much detail. But hopefully next week, we would have a proper discussion. Mr. Jaja, thank you very much for coming through today.
Thank you.
Mr. Mufasa, thank you very much for coming through today as well. All right, this is where we wrap it up on this episode of Blowout. We are open for advert placements, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Nantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Nantic TV Network 1, on X at Nantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember, we are the pathways to progress. Open conversation comes up shortly. Please don't go away. Thank you for watching. I am Antonia Asabel.
Media's role in shaping social change, addressing inequities, and empowering voices. Chairman Alex Ndudi Enebele, FSM, President, Institute of Strategic Management of Nigeria, Chartered. Keynote speaker, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, Professor of Media and Broadcasting Communication. Panelist, Professor Chris Ochonogo, Immediate Past Head of Department, Journalism and Media Studies, University of Port Harcourt. Dr. Ijoma Tobosia, Secretary, NUJ, River State. Dr. Sarah Joe, University Orator and Associate Dean, Faculty of Communication and Media, River State University, Port Harcourt, Dr. Ibiere Koki, Ignatius Aju University of Education, Rumolomini, Port Harcourt. Chief host, Dr. Chinyere Igwe, Esquire, Chairman, Morrison Group. Date, Tuesday, 10th March 2026. Venue, Gate Place Hotel, Kilometer 5, East West Road, adjacent Obirikwere Flyover, Rumosi, Port Harcourt. Time, 10 a.m. For more information, please call Kainde Paul Obofadi, 081-063, or Samuel Ajinwo at 090-454-00744. Signed, Management.